Good afternoon. Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived at the G7 summit in Japan just hours after the US announced its support for plans to supply his country with F-16 fighter jets. The Ukrainian president said the news meant peace had become closer today. He's holding a series of meetings, including with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Andrew Misra has the latest.
Ukraine's president arrived in Japan earlier for talks with G7 leaders. Volodymyr Zelensky was greeted warmly in Hiroshima by Rishi Sunak.
Good to see you. How are you? Yeah, I'm all right. Made it.
Just hours after Western leaders agreed to back his country's air forces. Earlier this year, US President Joe Biden ruled out training Ukrainian pilots to fly advanced F-16 fighter jets. But overnight, the White House said it will now support joint efforts to do so.
We've reached a moment where it is time to look down the road and to say, what is Ukraine going to need as part of a future force to be able to deter and defend against Russian aggression as we go forward? F-16's fourth-generation fighter aircraft are part of that mix. The obvious first step there is to do the training and then to work with allies and partners and the Ukrainians to determine how to do the actual provision of planes as we move forward.
Zelensky's hailed the decision as historic.
It's a good day, isn't it? A good day.
Thanks so much.
Though Russia's warned that supplying jets to Ukraine carries colossal risks. It's not clear where the planes will come from, and training the pilots could take several months. Supporting war-torn Ukraine was always likely to dominate the G7 agenda. The leaders have also outlined a shared vision against nuclear weapons and addressed growing concerns around how China uses its military and economic power. China's urged the G7 to stop interfering in other countries' affairs. The diplomacy continues in Hiroshima, where the summit ends tomorrow. Andrew Misra, ITV News.
Well, our political editor, Robert Peston, is in Hiroshima. Robert, the Prime Minister playing a significant role in getting the Ukrainian leader to the G7.
Yeah, I think we could call it a team effort. About a month ago, the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, suggested to President Zelensky that he come here to Hiroshima to have face-to-face meetings with the leaders of the richest nations in the world, the G7 leaders, to persuade them to provide more military and financial support. And as we've just heard, actually, one of his dearest wishes, as President Zelensky's dearest wishes, to get some fighter jets, definitely moved a very significant step closer with the announcement by President Biden that, yes, the Netherlands, the UK can now train Ukrainian pilots in the use of F-16 jets, but it will be a few months before those jets arrive. Now, as you've also just heard, Russia has warned against what it sees as an escalation by the democratic nations of the West. I'm standing in a place where, you know, global conflict is a sort of living memorial to what happens when global conflict gets out of control. The G7 have issued a communique tonight warning the Russians not to deploy nuclear weapons, and there is also, and I think in some ways this is the other really significant part of their communique, they are telling China not to attempt to take Taiwan by force and not to use their economic might, not to abuse their economic might by putting unfair pressure on other countries. More talks tomorrow. This feels like a very significant G7, however.
Robert Peston in Hiroshima, thank you very much. Household energy bills for most consumers should fall by around 16% this summer, according to a new report. The figures come from Cornwall Insight, an energy research group, which previously correctly predicted the level of the cap. Well, next week, Ofgem will set the price that providers can charge from this July. Neil Connery has the details.
After the pain of high energy costs over the past year, experts say consumers should soon see a fall in the average bill of around £450. But energy prices will remain at historically high levels as much of the government's support schemes have wound down. The energy price guarantee currently limits a typical household's energy bill to £2,500 equivalent per year. from July, bills will revert to the energy price cap, which is predicted to be £2,053 per year for a typical household bill, bringing the average down by around £37 per month.
So it is good news that energy bills are coming down, but we have to remember that where they're coming down to is broadly equivalent to the prices we were paying over winter when we had all of that government support. So they're not actually coming down to below levels that we have been used to paying in this crisis. So this is good news. The direction of travel is good, but we should be under no illusions that the energy crisis is over.
The new energy price cap will be announced on Thursday. European natural gas prices fell back into their normal trading range for the first time since the start of the energy crisis last week. But the situation in Ukraine and its impact on energy prices still looms large. Neil Connery, ITV News.
And finally, a cricket match in West Sussex was brought to an unexpected halt when the pitch inadvertently became a landing strip. Play was stopped when a hot air balloon descended onto the field in Chichester. The surprise landing stopped the under-10s game briefly, but both the players and the pilot got away unscathed. That is all we've got time for this lunchtime. Geraint Vincent will be back at 7:15 after the rugby. For now, though, from all of the team, goodbye.